In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Jetpack Compose lazy column to display data from the paging library. For this purpose, I'm using the Android paging project from Android Code Labs. I have created a fork from this project on my GitHub page, and I have made some changes to it. I have added Compose support, so you can go to the Compose branch, which has the Compose support, and I'm going to add the lazy column and replace the existing recycler view with lazy column in this video. So let's see how it's done. First, you can go to the build.gradle file to see the dependencies that I have added. You can see that I have added paging compose artifact, and then you can run the existing project without the lazy column implementation because it is currently using the recycler view implementation. And you can expect that after converting the existing list to lazy column, we will not need the existing adapters and view holders because we will use the lazy column, which we know works directly with the data. Here's the existing application that is run, and you can see that on the emulator. So let's add the lazy column. First, I go to the layout file for the activity that I have, search repositories activity, that allows the user to search for a repository, and then it connects to the GitHub API and loads those repositories that contain that keyword that the user searched for. So let's open the repository search repositories activity, and here I'm going to replace the existing recycler view with a compose view. So I open split view, and then I select the recycler view. I copy the existing recycler view, I comment it out, and I paste it following the commented one. I change the recycler view tag to compose view, AndroidX compose.ui.platform compose view, and I'm going to keep most of these existing attributes like the ID and constraints. I'm going to remove scroll bars, and yes, we're good to go. Also, I'm going to change the constraints that I have here. I'm going to remove the top constraint from the retry button, and also I'm going to remove the top constraint from the progress bar. Actually, I'm gonna remove the visibility, make them invisible. So make them invisible. Attributes, visibility, invisible, and now the progress bar, it's invisible. Back to the code view, retry button, yes, it's invisible. And next I go to my activity code, and here I'm gonna remove the parts that are working with adapters. The list doesn't accept an adapter, so I comment out this part. And finding the list that invisible, because we are not going to need adapter, I comment out the adapter code here. Like this. And we have a binding. You can see we have a binding for our layout for the activity. It is set as the content of this activity, and we have the search method that is called from the onCreate. You can see the initializations that are being performed. Let's reload from disk. So that activity search repositories binding is resolved. A view binding has been used in this project. And binding.list add item decoration is not available. We don't need decoration for lazy column. We initialize the view model. Init adapter, we don't need it, so I comment it out. We receive the query from the user or use the default query, and we search for the query, and then init search that deals with search controls and initializes search when the user presses search. And we have the retry button that is given an onClick listener. We don't need it. And in the search function, I'm going to implement my list. So, as you can see, we have a coroutine scope for performing the search, and inside it, I'm going to access binding.list, which is my compose view, and then apply. First, I set the view composition strategy. I set it to view composition strategy dot dispose on view tree lifecycle destroyed. You can use other available values as well. And then I set content. Inside the set content, I access my view model in order to get the data from my paging library. So val, I get the data from the view model. So val lazy items, I call this variable lazy items, and then view model dot search repo, and then I pass the query, and then from the result, which is a flow, I collect items as lazy paging items. Now I can pass it to the items composable, the items function inside lazy column. So I create lazy column, import lazy column. Inside the body of the lazy column, first I check for the loading state. So if lazy items dot load state dot refresh, if it is being currently refreshed, equals load state dot loading, then I display a message that the user needs to wait. Please wait for items to load. Import text. I give it a modifier. Import modifier. Modifier wrap content width. and I put the text inside item. Because we are in a lazy list scope, we need to use item to hold our content. And then we display the list items with items. There are several overloads of items. One of them receives lazy paging items. That's what we need. So I pass lazy items to it, and then we create its body. And in the body, because the item type that we receive has UI model type, and if you look at the definition of UI model, you will see that it has two types. It can be either repo item or separator item. So we check for it. If item is UI model dot repo item, then I use the repo UI composable that I have already created to display that item. Here's the preview for repo UI that I have created earlier in Compose. So repo UI, I pass in item.repo for it, and else if item is UI model.separator item. If it is a separator item, then I use the separator UI composable that I have created from before. Okay, let's fix some minimal errors that we have. Our list is now a compose view, so it doesn't support scroll to position. So I comment out this part, and the adapter is not needed anymore. So comment all this part like this, and the lifecycle scope.launch part, and let's run the application to see if it works. Okay, it's not loaded yet. I have some connection problem probably. I go to my layout for activity search and make sure that progress bar is invisible, visibility invisible, I run it again. So I go back to my search repositories activity, and here seems like we have some errors. I reload from disk, sync project with Gradle files. Hopefully these red lines will disappear. So lazy column, searching for load state. Let's add another if statement for the append condition. If the list is being appended with new items, if lazy items dot load state dot append equals load state. If new items are being loaded into the list, load state dot loading, then I display a circular progress indicator. I add a modifier to it with fill max width and wrap content width to align it in the center with the default value of center horizontally, so I don't specify anything. And I put it inside an item because we are in a lazy list scope. Like this. And also I removed the code that was searching for repositories from before and passing the items to the adapter. We don't need it because we are making another call to search repo. So I run the application again. There we go. It is now displaying the list using our composables and using lazy column. So that's it, basically how you can display data from a paging library in a lazy column. It removes the need for adapters and it removes a lot of the complexities of the paging adapter and paging library. All you need to do is go to my Android Paging GitHub repository, which is a fork of Android Paging Code Lab, and from the compose branch you can find a tag that says start here. You can get the code that is the starting point where you will add the list and convert the existing recycler view to a lazy column.